With us now, former Florida Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo and Lee Gelernt, Deputy Director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project, who fought Trump's family separation policy during the first Trump administration. Lee, thank you for being with us. How are you and the ACLU seeing this, and what are you doing to prepare?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. We have been preparing for nearly a year for a second President Trump term. We were caught off guard the first time, and this time we're not going to be caught off guard. We've been preparing for nearly a year for various policies. As you said, I argued the family separation policy the first time around. He hasn't ruled that out. They're talking about mass deportations, including use of the military. We think that's flatly illegal and are prepared to challenge that when we see the details if that actually happens. But, the bottom line is, as bad as things were the first time around, we think they're going to be much worse for immigrants. And your setup piece was a very good one. But I unfortunately think that people are fooled themselves to think they're only going to go after criminals. They're promising mass deportations. That goes well beyond people with serious criminal records. And so we're prepared for the worst.
Lee, and it's an interesting question because I think back on the history of the United States and deportations, and we can go after 1986, after that, comprehensive immigration reform that was signed by President Reagan. But there were massive deportations during the Obama administration. There were massive deportations and there were deportations as well under the first Trump administration. But Lee, how do you, as an organization, decide how to focus on fighting against what is an overreach of the Constitution and what is the U.S. government's legal responsibility to deal with its border and migration?
Yeah, well, you're asking the exact right question and a really hard question for us. We have limited resources and we need to pick and choose which cases we're going to go after. And I think one of the things the Trump team did the first time around is try and enact so many policies that it would overwhelm us. I suspect we're going to see that again. So what we'll have to do is pick the most egregious policies and go after them, but we'll have to be coordinated with city and state governments, with other NGOs, and with people in civil society to really have an organized effort. And I think as you've pointed out, it can't just be in the courts. We need peaceful pushback by the American public. It has to be a national effort. And I think what I look back on is in family separation, we went to court and won that, but it wasn't without the public pushing back and saying, look, we wanted reform at the border, and we also want reforms to various immigration policies, but we can't do something like put the military out on our streets looking for immigrants or separate little children from their families. So this is going to have to be a national effort, and we're going to have to be strategic and wise about how we use our resources to go after various policies.
And Carlos, all of this that Lee's talking about, when one has to pull back the curtain and see and say what one sees. Donald Trump's policies, views, and semantics around immigration, undocumented, and migrants was successful. I mean, how do you square that?
Well, Jose, I think we have to understand and accept that Donald Trump has a political mandate to meaningfully address immigration. Now, how aggressive he gets about that will determine whether the public continues to back him or not. And we certainly saw that in his first administration. I think there was some support for tougher immigration enforcement, but when they started separating children from their parents, that's when the public support just collapsed. And of course, the Trump administration had to backtrack and stop that. So
stop that, but still thousands of kids, and as of today, there are still thousands of kids that have not been reunited. So, yeah, these things work, but that doesn't take away.
My point is, to your point, he does have political support to aggressively enforce immigration law. Now, if he goes too far, he could lose that political support. And Jose, you're seeing the results of a lot of these races, the Senate races, the House races. Republicans in tough districts are going to be in a very precarious situation in 2026. History indicates that, the second midterm of a presidency is very tough for his party. So I think even in Congress, if they go too far, if the public stop supporting Trump's immigration policies, you're going to see some pushback. But without a doubt, he is going to launch a significant deportation effort. My guess is they're going to check to see what's the highest number of deportations there have been under any administration. I think it might be Obama, and they're going to try to surpass that number.
And Lee, I want your thoughts on this, because the fact of reality is that people outside the United States are still willing and in many ways eager to make the dangerous trek to the United States to try and get asylum because of the need to survive. Listen to what a Venezuelan migrant traveling through Mexico had to say.
No sea mala gente, no sea egoísta con nosotros los inmigrantes, que nosotros somos seres humanos igual que usted. Denos la oportunidad de poder pasar para allá arriba. No nos podemos estar aquí, estamos mal, hemos sido secuestrados, mujeres violadas, muertos de todo. Por favor, ayúdenos.
Among the things she says, Lee, is that they're not bad people. They're not all bad, that they're just humans like everyone else. And that in Mexico, where they are, they've been kidnapped, raped, abused, which is something that we hear over and over again by all the migrants that cross Mexico. Lee, there is the universal definition of asylum, right? And every country can have different asylum laws, but these men, women, and children, they're willing to do anything and everything to try and get asylum here in the United States. What do we tell them, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, this is a horrific situation if we close down our borders and don't have any asylum. I mean, we promised after World War II we wouldn't send people back to danger without a hearing. And as you've pointed out so many times, people don't want to leave their country unless they have to. There are people in real dangerous situations, dire situations, who need asylum. And I think this narrative that was put out there by President Trump, that all the people who are coming are criminals, is simply not true. We need to move away from that abstract notion and recognize that there are people fighting for their lives in real danger, and we need a proper screening process. No one's saying we can't reform the screening process, but to shut down the border completely to people fleeing danger, that's just not something that's consistent with our values or what we promised after World War II.
Carlos Curbelo and Lee Gallant, thank you very much for being with us today. Appreciate it.